Welcome to Do-It-Yourself Workshop. My name is Brian, and today I'm going to show you how to make a fireplace bellow.
During the summer, I cut down a walnut tree in the backyard, and I had a guy come up and mill it into boards. This is a little footage of that. I air dried the lumber in the garage for a couple months until it was dry enough. I found some boards that were a little on the thin side to start and cut them into sections. I sent them through the planer to get them down to 1/2 inch thick. After that, I went to SketchUp and drew up a template. I glued the template on the board and glued the boards together temporarily. This allows me to cut them on a bandsaw and sand both sections at the same time, and ensures that both sections are exactly the same. I cut just outside the template, and then it was off to the strip sander to clean up the edges. It wasn't important to get this smooth, and it was a lot of sanding. I didn't show any of this in my video because it was just kind of boring me sitting there sanding on the edges. Before I took the template off though, I marked a spot where to drill the inlet valve hole. I drilled this, and then I finished up with some sandpaper to round over the edges. I wanted to have an old English J kind of recessed in the face of the top paddle, so I found a font I liked and installed it on the word. I played with the size a little and printed it out. I centered it and made some tick marks for later. I used some spray adhesive to glue the printout to the paddle, making sure that the tick marks that I had marked before lined up. You can easily do this with a CNC machine, but I haven't enough money or enough time to build one. So I decided to use my Dremel and carve it myself. I sped up this video quite a bit because it did take a long time. I'm not going to go into it in detail because I plan on making another in-depth video about power carving with the Dremel. I would like to take this time to thank everyone for watching my videos and hitting the like and subscribe button. I'm just getting started and I'm just learning as I go, so a big thank you to you guys for supporting my channel. If you haven't heard of Patreon, it's the best way to support my channel and allows me to keep making these videos. I'll leave a link in the description below and you can check it out. Overall, I'm very happy about how the carving turned out. Although you can't see the outline very well, I fixed that with my soldering iron with a chisel tip to burn the edges all the way around. A little bit of touch-up sanding, and then it was back to the bandsaw. I marked a line across the nose of the top paddle and cut it off. I hadn't decided what I wanted to use for the nozzle, so I decided I'd keep working and think about it. I used my wife's flexible sewing ruler to measure from the nose to the middle of the handle. I got some black leather that was finished on one side and took that measurement and transferred it to the leather. I measured 6 inches up and then drew a curved line connecting them. Then I measured approximately 1/2 inch extra and made another line. You'll see why in a second. I used a fabric wheel to cut out this side, flipped it over, and traced it on the other side to cut it out too. Next, I got some contact cement and brushed it on either side of the line. I let the contact cement dry until it was just a little tacky and then folded over the edge. This will give a nice edge to leather when it's finished. While that was all drying, I grabbed some polyurethane and brushed on a coat. This was stuff that was left over from my stairs, and it's meant for floors, so it's going to be plenty durable. I did a little light sanding between coats and ran over it with faurot steel wool. I will say if you're using an oil-based polycoat, steel wool is fine, but I've heard that if you use it with water-based, that sometimes the steel wool can get stuck in the finish and then it'll end up rusting. I cut out a small piece of leather and put contact cement on 3 sides. This will act as a valve, so air can come in but not out. Next I cut a piece of thick inch. I pre-drilled some holes and hit it with some contact cement. Then I used carpet tacks to hold it in place. First I did a test fit, and it seemed to fit fine. I purposely made the edges a little long, so I had some forgiveness after it was all glued and tacked on one side. I brushed contact cement on the edge and the folded over edges of the leather. In hindsight, I wish that I had split it up into 4 sections. I kinda did this after I realized that it would be nearly impossible to glue the entire side together. It would have worked a lot better to do the top or bottom in only one side. For example, do the bottom, put glue on the left side to the middle of the paddle, then move to the right side, and then do the top in the same way. Another thing I should have done was let the contact cement set up a little bit more before putting the edges on. I used a compass to get even spacing around the whole edge. This worked out really well because the compass left little dimples in the leather, which is kind of the point. This way I could come back and pre-drill shallow holes, so when I hammered in the furniture tacks, they had something to grab onto. For the handle part, I just used regular carpet tacks that I had kind of nipped off the tips so they wouldn't actually go through the whole thing. As I was finishing the last quarter of the leather, I realized that the top and bottom there was an excess of leather at the end. To fix this, I pulled a couple tacks off the bottom and made it so the excess leather was down by the handle. I glued and tacked it there, and you can't really tell. After all the leather was glued and tacked on, I had to tackle the nose of the bellow. This was a little harder than I thought it was going to be. I started by taking a round piece of paper and folding it over onto the nose until I got in the ballpark of kind of what I was looking for. Then I refined the paper until I had something that worked well. I took my paper template and transferred it over to the leather. Again, I over the edges. I cut out little sections so when it was folded over it would lay flat. I've never made one of these before, so there's probably a better way of doing this, but this is just what I was able to come up with and it seemed to work fine. I brushed contact cement on the sides of the nose and in the middle of my leather and stuck them together. My idea was to fold the edges like wrapping a present. This is a lot harder than I thought it was going to be, but I was able to get it to work. I forgot to mention that I did end up finding something to use for the nozzle. I ended up going to one of the big box stores and looking around. I knew I wanted something brass, so I went to the plumbing section and ended up finding a 6-inch long brass pipe that was just the right diameter. I got that and then cut it in half with a hacksaw. I wasn't able to get any of this footage because my camera died in the process, but it's pretty straightforward. I walled out the hole that the nozzle went in and was able to twist it down in snug. I did actually come back and glue it in. And then I was done.
And that's it. If you liked the video, hit the thumbs up and subscribe. You wanted to subscribe, right? If you want to support future videos, check me out on Patreon. I left a link in the description below. Thanks. Say bye.